Hello, and we are back for the second piece of social media ROI and social media employees here. And here we're going to start with CMOs. Those are the chief marketing officers. Um, so there was a study done a little while ago. I believe it was Hootsuite, and they had a big survey of all sorts of people that were in charge of marketing for their organization: CMOs, vice presidents, some presidents, and they asked them a bunch of questions. When they came to social media, they found only 15% of CMOs can actually quantify the impact of social media. And then when they were asked about their challenges, measuring the ROI of social media is the top challenge. Barring none, that is number one. But then the question shifts to why aren't they measuring ROI? And there were a bunch of answers. The big one was that, hey, we just can't tie social media to our business's outcomes. From there was a lack of analytical expertise, resources. Didn't actually have the I don't know if this was based on knowledge or not having the tools, but they just couldn't do it. From there, they didn't have the tools, right? Poor tools, 38%. So maybe not having anything other than the native platforms, and then, analytical approaches and reliable data, lots of number issues. All of that is to say these are actually really important things, because being able to show your ROI, while maybe you don't need to show dollars and cents, but you need to show something. You need to at least be able to show year over year growth, year over year brand awareness improvement. Because if not, there's no way for people in positions of, a CFO, for example, to justify that cost. Marketing has always been considered an expense, not a revenue generator. And a lot of times, if you look in business journals and business news sections, Wall Street Journal, you'll see a lot of corporate CEOs. They start in finance, or they start in HR. They start in I don't like other logistics. It's very, very rare that a marketing person ascends the ranks to CEO of a major corporation. And a lot of that comes down to, once again, misalignment with finance, where they could be doing the best job in the world. And yet they end up falling flat because there is somewhere along the line an inability to connect the work that they're doing to the bottom line of the business, to show that what they're doing is actually a positive for the company. So this is really why social media ROI is important. This is where we begin. In that one, uh, you need to be able to justify the time and money spent on social media marketing. And it's interesting because a lot of people in positions of leadership today are obsessed with vanity metrics. They love follower numbers. They love seeing big numbers of engagements. And that is great. And on one hand, you do have to kind of tailor your your work to what they want to see. But that kind of makes it easier. You do have to appeal to leadership's egos, but you also have to be constantly trying to change the perception of social media across the organization. When you have a 1,000 person organization and hundreds of people that work in finance, and you have whatever 20 to 30 people in marketing, maybe 50, um, or even if it's an outside agency, you are constantly going to be fighting an uphill battle, because you have to show ROI, but not just show it in a way that you decide just make up one day. It's got to be something that they're going to believe and that they're going to be able to understand. And a lot of people, everybody knows what social media is. Everybody sees it. Everybody engages with it on some level. Could be even the person who's never had an account on Facebook or anything else, right? It's just become part of the discourse of society today. Um, there is still a perception that everybody has. And when it comes to business and being able to properly articulate the value that a company's social media presence has, especially as it relates to the bottom line, that is what social media ROI does. That's what it proves. From there, it becomes a trickle down effect. That's where you can get more dollars to do more stuff, ad campaigns, Do more in like incentives based contests and competitions. Then from there, you can expand future campaigns, initiatives, um, and then even experiment and understand. All right, this one worked, this one didn't. The most successful marketing uh, that is done really at a corporate level today is either done with all the resources in the world or none. People that don't have any resources are just kind of left to bootstrap and work their own way, and they're not really watched super closely, so they can be a little bit more experimental, kind of like the "we have nothing to lose" approach. But then on the other side, those who can prove it, they can keep getting more money, they can keep proving success, and they can just keep showing what's working and not working, so that they continue to improve. I rarely see anything between those two extremes. And a lot of times it's the startups, the company starting from zero that is really working with the $0. Um, the bigger the business, the not necessarily bigger the social media budget, but really the bigger the effort to show social media ROI, that corresponds to a larger budget down the line. All right. So this is the big piece here. One of the most important slides and graphics that I think I show, and this is how to link your strategic intent, which is your goals, all the way to your KPIs and actual metrics. So each goal, we start with the goal here on the left. This is just an example from a false company, Bowie Supply Co. They sold backpacks. And starting here with the goals, right? That's the strategic intent. You're looking to increase brand awareness. I would argue that there are really only two things to set as goals: increasing brand awareness and increasing revenue. I am not a fan of increasing revenue on organic social media whatsoever. That just turns you into a salesperson. And I'll talk later about what that really means. But when you're increasing brand awareness, you then have to connect it to 3 to 5 KPIs or objectives. And I say 3 to 5. Some have said, I don't know, 4 to 6. The key is that it's not just one, but it's also not everything. You can't just connect your goal to every single number that you can measure. Then you would be here all day, just constantly working on this. But it's also not one to one, or else you wouldn't need the goal. You wouldn't need this whole table if you only needed one KPI per goal. So all you got to do is set some objectives. Say, okay, brand awareness, we all know it's more of an intangible thing, but what all does that include? You think about, okay, what are the tangible numbers that go into a brand? All right, there's followers. Great. There's engagements. All right, what about the website? How does this connect? All right, visitors on the website, and then we can still keep revenue just in case. So the one important thing here is, hey, when you're looking at objectives and metrics, and we're talking about social media goals, these are all social media, by the way, social media. Everything needs to tie back to social media. So you see this here. It says generate 100% more traffic on website and number of page views and visitors. Those are all going to be numbers from social media, not in general. Very easy to measure. Google Analytics, usually it's just part of the default setup. Very easy to grab. Because then you also look at, okay, let's say we have an Instagram account. That's where we're going to focus all of our time and effort. We don't have to worry about the other one. All right. 150%. That seems a little ambitious, but okay. Then we want to increase engagements. All right. 50%. We want to double the traffic to our website from social media. Okay. And then increase in sales from social media, which again could be nothing. It could be, but hey, you take it from $10 to what, $12 or $13, whatever. That helps. You put all these objectives together to then equal your goal, right? If those all increase, if those all hit, then you know that you have increased brand awareness. You can figure out these numbers for yourself. These are usually the way that I've always dealt with it is I'll start with a number. You always want to start at 10%, and then work your way up. And then it's really just a matter of kind of getting buy-in and agreement from everybody else. It doesn't have to be these exact objectives. You can change them based on what your company is focusing on. For some companies, for example, they're all about building an email list, building a lead pipeline. Maybe in the B2B space, it's more about, okay, I need more traffic to the website, more actual legitimate leads, maybe from social media. Maybe you don't have to worry about followers. Personally, I don't think followers are as important as they once were. I think it's more about engagement. And honestly, I think reach and impressions are becoming almost as important as followers. So that's a thing. Just do with that what you may. But then the other thing to understand here on this slide is that objectives, they have objectives. Like you are trying to reach that objective, which is why you see growing by a certain percent, increasing engagement by a percent, things like that. You'll see the metrics column on the right. That is just straight numbers. Keep in mind, this whole thing is should be based around a time period. So the whole slide, let's say it's an annual thing, annual review. All right, did we increase brand awareness in whatever year it was? Last year. Okay, did we meet these objectives? Yes, yes, yes. How did we get there? And then you look at the actual number of new followers, number of likes, comments, and shares, number of page views and visitors from social media, then revenue from social media posts. Those are all metrics. I think that's going to actually be where I'm going to go one more slide actually. And that is really a couple other quick definitions. So you have all of these here. I'm not going to go into all of them. Just know though that these other definitions are all nice to have as potential objectives. These are not necessarily something you can measure on a simple easily. The idea with this slide with the objectives that were listed here is you can grab all these pretty fast, I would hope. These are not. These require a little bit more work, or like a separate platform like Hootsuite or Sprout. And another thing is a lot of times it requires surveys of your audience. Again, I realize that is not something that a lot of companies are going to have access to, but if you're looking for more advanced objectives and metrics, these are here for you. I wouldn't just call them earned media, by the way, for example. You can look into these a little bit more if you would like. I personally am a big fan of the Net Promoter Score. You use these a lot with events, for example. But yeah, so these are more advanced. Consider those as a little bit more in-depth objectives and metrics. But once again, the goal, that is an intangible, not a number. Usually brand awareness. Objectives, you're looking for increases or decreases, whatever your goal is. With numbers, metrics are just the numbers. No growth, nothing. It's just raw data points. All right. And from there, I will take another pause, and then we're going to look at investing in social media, how you measure that on the ROI. And from there, we'll go into more of the hiring and managing the social media staff.